This is Jason McConnell, and this quick tip covers the many uses of the arrow keys in Illustrator. Most people know that if you have an object selected and you tap on the arrow keys, it'll nudge that object over by whatever increment you have selected in your preferences. And if you hold the Shift key when you do it, it nudges it over, I think, 10 times that increment. But there are plenty of other uses for the arrow keys. They can be used in pretty much any of the input and dialog boxes. So for example, if you go into the stroke panel and into the weight box, if you hit the up arrow, it'll increase the stroke weight. And the down arrow will decrease the stroke weight. And if you wanted to increase it even more, or decrease it, hold the Shift key, and then when you hit the up arrow, it will increase by 6 points. And another example is if we go to the font size box, just hit the up arrow to increase the font size, and the down arrow to decrease the font size. And again, if you hold the Shift key, in this case, it will increase the font size by 4 points, or decrease it by 4 points. So I find that easier than going to these input boxes and hitting the arrows, because a lot of times I'll miss the arrows. So I'll just click in the boxes and hit the arrow keys. Alright, so I think you get the idea of how to use the arrow keys in the input boxes. But you can also use the arrow keys with some of the drawing tools, which can be pretty helpful. So for instance, if you select the rounded rectangle tool and start dragging out a rectangle, if you hit the up arrow, it'll increase the radius of the corners. And if you hit the down arrow, it'll decrease that radius. Alright, so that can be a little bit faster than going into the options here and changing the corner radius and finding out that you didn't get it right. So the next tool that you can use the arrows with is the Polygon tool. If you click and drag out, and as you're holding down the mouse, click on the up arrow, it'll increase the number of sides. If you hit the down arrow, it'll decrease it all the way down to a triangle. You can use it for the star tool if you want to get more sides on the star or more points on the star. Hit the up arrow and the down arrow. By the way, you can hold the Command key or the Control key on Windows, and if you hold that, you can pull out the corners to get sharper points or not so sharp points. Alright, the last of the shape tools is the flare tool. As you're dragging that out, if you hit the up arrow, it'll give you more flare, I guess. And if you hit the down arrow, you'll get less flare. Alright, a few more. If you go to the arc tool and start dragging out the line, you can hit the down arrow for less of an arc and an up arrow for more of an arc. Spiral tool, drag that out. You can hit the down arrow to get less of a spiral and the up arrow to get more of a spiral. And by the way, with this one too, you can hold the Command key on a Mac or Control on Windows. And you can either tighten up the spiral by pulling in or loosen up the spiral by pulling out. So that's by holding the Command key on Mac or Control key on Windows. There's a rectangular grid tool. As you're dragging that out, if you hit the up arrow, you'll increase the number of rows. Down arrow will decrease the number of rows. And the right arrow will increase the number of columns. And the left arrow will decrease the number of columns. I like this one, the polar grid tool. As you're dragging this out, if you click on the up arrow, it will increase the number of concentric dividers. Down will decrease the number of concentric dividers. And if you hit the right arrow, it'll increase the number of radial dividers, and the left arrow will decrease the number of radial dividers. Okay, that's all for arrow key tips. I'll see you next time.